We use quite a bit of water with our outdoor grow, and we like to bubble our nutrient teas for several days before feeding them out. Let's look at how we made our new water barrel and how we improved the one that we already had. Welcome to the Hippie Geeks. Let's dig into this project. We already have a single 55-gallon barrel that we have used for a couple of years now, and while it has worked, it has not been ideal. The biggest issue with it is just how long it takes to get the water out of the barrel, especially as it empties out towards the bottom. Most tutorials will tell you to use a bulkhead fitting that you can screw a garden hose onto, like the one you see me removing here, and that will work. However, it is extremely low flow, and if you have any solids in your barrel, it will clog up constantly. This is less than ideal, which is leading to the upgrade that we are going to be doing today. After we get this barrel upgraded, we are going to build a new watering barrel from scratch as well, so make sure to watch until the end to see that process. First up, I'm going to remove the existing hose spigot just to get it out of the way. Next, I'm going to drill out the new hole, and I am putting it in a little lower than the one that I already had in here, just to make it a bit easier to completely drain the barrel. This particular bulkhead needs a 1.75-inch hole to install it, so I grabbed my hole saw kit and got the hole punched into the side of the barrel. Now that the hole was in, I went ahead and reinstalled the hose spigot into its hole before moving on to the new one. Once the old spigot was back in, I cleaned up the edges of the new hole with my Leatherman just to make sure that we had a nice clean surface for the gasket to seal to. Once the hole was ready, I just climbed into the barrel and pushed the interior portion of the bulkhead through the hole. If it binds up a bit, just screw it in as tightly as you can. Once it is in, take the outer nut and screw it onto the piece you just pushed through. Snug it down, but don't completely tighten it up, as you want to get the spigot itself installed before you tighten it down all the way. In this case, I had to loosen the existing hose spigot again as it was in the way of tightening down the new bulkhead fitting, but that went pretty quickly. Once the new spigot is installed into its bulkhead fitting, finish tightening down the outer nut. This is going to be the pressure that seals the bulkhead fitting from leaking, so make sure it is nice and tight. This one was pretty easy as the entire top of the barrel has been cut off, but it will be a little more tricky with the one we are going to build from scratch. With this barrel, we are starting completely from scratch. This was from a local organic goods company, and it originally had grapeseed oil in there. Well, there is actually a bit left, and I will need to clean that out before we can use it as a bubbler. Now, with this barrel, I wanted to leave a hanging point across the middle to be able to hang bags full of organic matter when we make teas. I decided to just use the contours of the barrel to decide where the edges were going to be, and then I left a solid piece right across the middle. I then drew radius arcs around the corners as I would be using a jigsaw to cut it all out, and then grabbed the hole saw again. I punched a hole on each side and then used the jigsaw to cut the outline that I had drawn. Now, I didn't actually have to make such a large hole, I really just needed enough room to get the blade in. This was actually the first thing that I did in the process of both barrels though, as I wanted a test piece to make sure that the bulkhead fitting would actually work in a hole this size. There is nothing worse than punching a hole into your barrel, only to discover that it is either too large or too small. Always use a scrap piece of material to test it out on before committing to doing something irreversible. Once all of the material was cut away, I went around all the edges with my Leatherman again, just to get rid of all the rough material that the jigsaw had left behind. Now it is time to punch the hole into the side of this barrel, much in the same way that I did with the last barrel. It is just going to be easier because we don't have to worry about the existing spigot that was in the last barrel. Once the hole is cleaned up, it is time to get the bulkhead fitting installed. In the last barrel, I just crawled into it and pushed it through, but we cannot do that with this barrel as we left the crossbar on top when we cut the holes in. The thing to do here is to feed a piece of string through the hole and pull it out the top of the barrel. You can then put the bulkhead fitting onto the string and it will ride it down to the hole like it is on a zip line. Then you just need to pull it through from the front enough to get the nut on it and then tighten it down just like we did in the last barrel. That will pull it the rest of the way through, so then we install the spigot, get it aligned, and tighten the nut down, leaving us with a fully secured bulkhead fitting. I also picked up a couple of 90-degree elbows for each barrel, which will direct the water down into a 5-gallon bucket. Now that they are both ready, the question is, was it worth doing? If you have watched any of our outdoor grows, you have seen how long it usually takes me to water the plants, as I have to wait for the 5-gallon buckets to fill up. With the barrel filled to the 25-gallon mark, I emptied out 5 gallons of water using each spigot and timed how long it took. With the new 1-inch bulkhead fittings, it took about 30 seconds to fill a 5-gallon bucket. With the old spigot, the same test took 2.5 minutes. That is not to mention the time savings of not having the new spigot clog at all, which has been amazing. I can water out all 4 of the outdoor plants in about 5 minutes compared to the 30 minutes or so that it took me before. I think that it has been totally worth it, but you will have to judge that for yourself. If you want to do this project, we will leave Amazon Associates links down in the description for everything we use to put these together. Anything that you buy through our Amazon links helps out the channel with a small commission for sending you their way, so thank you for using them. A big shout out goes to our channel members here on YouTube and patrons over on Patreon that have pledged at the trimmer level. While all of our members and patrons help keep the channel going, you folks have gone above and beyond, and we really appreciate it.